the birth of a battlefield legend. When British soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy in 1944, they carried a rifle that was already half a century old, the short magazine Lee-Enfield, SMLE. Designed in 1895 and adopted in 1907, it was still the standard weapon of Commonwealth forces. Their German enemies wielded the Karabiner 98K, a descendant of Paul Mauser's famed bolt-action system. On paper, the German rifle was more accurate and modern, yet British soldiers who captured them almost always kept their Enfields. It wasn't sentimentality, it was battlefield pragmatism. The story began in the 1880s, when the British Army sought a repeating rifle using smokeless powder. James Paris Lee, a Scottish-Canadian inventor, created a detachable box magazine. Combined with Enfield's rifling, it formed the basis for the Lee-Enfield. By 1907, the SMLE Mark III emerged, the rifle that would serve through 2 world wars. What made it endure wasn't one revolutionary feature, but a combination of practical design choices prioritizing what truly mattered in combat. At the turn of the century, European armies obsessed over long-range marksmanship. The Germans designed their Mausers for accuracy at 800 to 1,500 yards. The British, after field studies, recognized most engagements occurred within 300 yards. They shortened the barrel to 25 inches for maneuverability in trenches and vehicles, accepting slightly less range for faster handling, a decision that proved prophetic during World War I. The Lee-Enfield's rear-locking bolt design puzzled engineers. Most rifles, like the Mauser, locked at the front near the chamber. Rear locking seemed weaker, yet it offered a crucial advantage: speed. The longer bolt throw and smooth action made it faster to operate, and more tolerant of dirt. Critics who called it less accurate missed the point. Battlefields weren't shooting ranges. By 1914, the SMLE was officially obsolete, but production increased. British officers knew its reliability and rate of fire gave ordinary soldiers an extraordinary edge. The British Army's demanding musketry standard, the Mad Minute, required soldiers to fire 15 aimed shots per minute. Skilled marksmen could reach 25 to 30. It wasn't mere drill, it was doctrine. On August 23, 1914, at Mons, 70,000 British troops faced 160,000 Germans. Expecting an easy victory, the Germans marched into what they believed was machine gun fire. In reality, it was disciplined riflemen with SMLEs. Their rapid, precise volleys cut down advancing lines before they could even return effective fire. German officers later reported facing dozens of machine guns. They were wrong. It was the Mad Minute in action. The SMLE's bolt handle sat at a 60-degree angle instead of 90 degrees, allowing quicker cycling and keeping the shooter's hand in a natural position. Its cock-on-closing action required less force to open the bolt, meaning smoother operation during rapid fire. The result? Unmatched volume and rhythm. British soldiers became the most feared riflemen in Europe, not because of advanced technology, but because their rifle complemented their training perfectly. Trench warfare soon turned the Western Front into a nightmare of mud, rain, and filth. Rifles were exposed to freezing water and corrosive muck that jammed tighter weapons. The Lee-Enfield's looser tolerances, once criticized as crude manufacturing, became a lifesaver. Dirt and mud that seized other rifles simply shook free. The Mauser's precision machining, ideal for target ranges, became a liability under battlefield conditions. Its on-closing bolt system gave it another edge. Since the firing pin spring compressed only when closing, opening the bolt required minimal effort. Crucial when clearing jams or ejecting sticky casings. In icy winters, when metal contracted and moisture froze, SMLEs still cycled, while many German rifles locked solid. British soldiers in 1917 wrote of their Enfields firing when captured German weapons couldn't even open. Water drainage, magazine design, and even the wood stock reflected practical thinking. The SMLE's magazine featured a cut-off switch to conserve ammo and drainage channels to prevent corrosion. Its Indian walnut stock absorbed the impact without cracking, unlike the Mauser's harder beechwood, which split easily when used as a hammer or club. British rifles simply survived abuse better. By war's end, the SMLE had proven itself more than a rifle. It was a philosophy made steel. It embodied the British Army's belief that reliability, adaptability, and soldier training outweighed precision engineering. At Mons and beyond, it didn't just hold the line, it defined it. War without end. By 1939, the Lee-Enfield had already fought one world war, survived trench rot and empire campaigns, and stood ready for another. Its latest form, the rifle number 4 MKA, was the final evolution, slightly heavier, sturdier, and simplified for mass production. It carried the same 10-round magazine, the same bolt, and the same sole. When the world plunged again into chaos, British and Commonwealth troops reached for the same old friend and trusted it completely. The new German rifle, the Karabiner 98K, was a shortened version of the Mauser 98. Its precision and range were superb, yet the Lee-Enfield's combat rhythm still dominated. The Mauser could fire 5 shots before reloading. The Enfield held 10, with charges that made topping up effortless. British soldiers could maintain nearly double the rate of sustained fire. On the front lines, that meant survival. At Dunkirk in 1940, as British forces withdrew under fire, the Enfield's ruggedness showed again. Many rifles, soaked in seawater and sand, still worked after minimal cleaning. In North Africa, they faced dust storms, heat, and grit, conditions that destroyed finely machined weapons. The SMLE's loose tolerances, once mocked by engineers, made it immune to choking dust. Desert veterans claimed that an Enfield would fire even if buried in sand, and dug out again. Its bolt-action system remained deceptively fast. The rear-locking lugs flexed slightly on firing, but that very elasticity allowed smooth cycling even when fouled. Experienced riflemen could fire and reload without losing sight of their target. In the hands of well-trained British troops, the Enfield could mimic the rhythm of a semi-automatic rifle. The number 4's new aperture sight replaced the old open notch, giving a cleaner sight picture and faster target acquisition. The heavier barrel improved accuracy without sacrificing handling. On the battlefield, the rifle balanced speed and precision like no other bolt action ever had. Then came the Pacific, where humidity and jungle rot ruined everything, except the Enfield. Australian and Indian troops carried the SMLE through Burma, where monsoon rains soaked rifles day and night. Soldiers dried them over campfires, wiped them with motor oil, and kept fighting. Even after months of exposure, the Enfields fired. American M1 Garands, when they appeared, impressed the Allies. But few Commonwealth soldiers ever traded their Enfields willingly. Snipers loved it too. The number 4 MKIT sniper variant used a hand-fitted action, scope mount, and cheek rest. Its accuracy rivaled the best German rifles, but what set it apart was reliability under extreme weather. Canadian snipers used it in the frozen forests of Europe. Indian snipers used it in jungles. Each trusted its zero to hold despite shocks and temperature changes. In the hands of colonial armies, the Enfield became a global soldier's weapon. From the sands of North Africa to the jungles of Malaya, From Canadian snow to Indian mountains, the rifle adapted to every climate. British logistics officers joked that the sun never set on the SMLE, and it was true. The rifle's design even reflected empire-wide practicality. Its 10-round magazine could be refilled quickly using 2 5-round stripper clips, an advantage unmatched by any other bolt action. Soldiers didn't carry spare magazines. They carried ammunition in chargers. The detachable magazine was not meant to be swapped, but cleaned easily when mud or seawater fouled it. Everything was designed for field repair by the man who used it. When American troops first encountered Commonwealth units in 1942, they were surprised by the Enfield's rapid rate of fire. US soldiers, armed with a semi-automatic Garand, admired its precision and rhythm. The British rifle, older in concept, still held its ground. Proof that design philosophy mattered as much as technology. At Alamein, Normandy, and Monte Cassino, the Enfield became part of history's greatest battles. Soldiers praised its balance, recoil control, and intuitive aim. It was not elegant, but it was unstoppable. The rifle endured where newer weapons failed. As World War II ended, millions of Lee-Enfields lay stacked in armories across continents. They had fought in deserts, jungles, mountains, and frozen wastelands. And yet, their story was far from over. In the decades that followed, the rifle would reappear in revolutions, independence wars, and modern conflicts, still firing, still relevant, still feared. Legacy of steel and smoke. The guns fell silent in 1945, but the Lee-Enfield refused to retire. In every corner of the crumbling British Empire, it remained the trusted companion of soldiers and rebels alike. Nations newly born from colonial rule inherited it. India, Pakistan, Burma, Malaysia, Kenya, and dozens more. For some, it became a symbol of authority, for others, of rebellion. In India and Pakistan, the SMLE was the foundation of their new armies. In 1947, as partition violence tore the subcontinent apart, both sides carried Enfields, often of the same batch, marked with opposing crests. In Kashmir, soldiers fought with rifles once stamped GR for George Rex, now serving under different flags. The sound of their bolts echoed across the Himalayas, proof that empires end, but their weapons linger. During the Korean War, Commonwealth troops again shouldered the number. 4 Mk1. Though semi-automatic rifles like the M1 Garand dominated, Enfields still appeared in frontline service, valued for reliability in freezing weather. Even as automatic weapons defined the mid-20th century, many armies preferred to keep their Enfields for designated marksmen and snipers. The number 40 sniper rifle continued in British use until the late 1950s, a record few bolt actions could match. The rifle also became a tool of resistance. In Kenya, Mau Mau fighters used stolen SMLEs against British colonial forces, often the same rifles issued to their fathers in earlier wars. In Malaya, communist guerrillas wielded Enfields deep in the rainforest. Across Africa and Asia, the rifle was both oppressor and liberator, depending on whose shoulder it rested. Then came a new chapter, Afghanistan. In the 1980s, during the Soviet invasion, Mujahideen fighters armed with old SMLEs, relics from British India, engaged Soviet troops equipped with AK-47s. At long range in the mountains, the .303 round still struck hard and true. Soviet patrols learned to fear snipers using weapons older than their fathers. Decades later, these rifles would still surface in the hands of tribal fighters and militias, scarred, repaired, but alive. In peace and war, the Enfield's design endured because it was built around the soldier, not the factory. Its bolt could be stripped with a coin, its sights adjusted with a nail, and its stock replaced with a knife and hammer. It required no perfection, only a human hand that cared enough to keep it working. That was its genius. Collectors and historians later tried to compare it to the Mauser, Springfield, and Mosin Nagant. But such comparisons miss the essence. The Lee-Enfield was not a rifle of precision. It was a rifle of persistence. It was designed not for the marksman's pride, but for the infantryman's survival. Its very looseness, its forgiving tolerances, and its ergonomic speed made it the perfect weapon for imperfect conditions. The chaos of war, the .303 British cartridge, though old-fashioned, carried immense stopping power. Its heavy 174-grain bullet was accurate enough at 600 yards, and deadly at closer ranges. In skilled hands, the Enfield could engage multiple targets rapidly, keeping up suppressive fire almost like an automatic weapon. No other bolt-action rifle achieved such a balance between accuracy, rate of fire, and reliability. Even into the 21st century, Enfields continue to appear in news photos, sometimes in the hands of Afghan police, Nepalese militias, or Pakistani tribal guards. Some have been rebarreled in 7.62 by 51 NATO. Others still fire the century-old .303 round. Their wood is dark, their metal worn smooth, but their spirit remains unchanged. For many, the rifle represents more than metal. It embodies a philosophy of soldiering, a belief that simplicity, training, and trust outweigh mechanical perfection. A weapon that forgave mud, neglect, and time, yet demanded discipline and care. It was a rifle that served empires, defended democracies, and armed revolutions. It was never just a gun, it was history you could shoulder. When a modern soldier cycles the bolt of a Lee-Enfield, he feels not just the mechanism, but the echo of the men who once fired it in the mud of Flanders, the dust of Egypt, and the jungles of Burma. Each click and clack is a whisper from another era. The Lee-Enfield was born from empire, tested by World War, and kept alive by those who refused to let it die. Its design may belong to the past, but its soul, endurance through adversity, belongs to every generation that carries a weapon and hopes to return home. In the end, it wasn't just a rifle that defined a century. It was the soldier's faith, made of walnut and steel. And even today, somewhere in the mountains, an old Enfield still answers the call of history.